What's up, gamers? Aaron Shack 64 here with a very special conversation that I want to have about the events that are taking place in Palestine, in the larger video gaming community about Palestine, and my own personal experiences of Palestine as someone whose mother's side of the family are Palestinians who fled Palestine back in the 40s. And so I therefore end up being half Palestinian, born American, born here in Texas. But before I get into my personal thoughts and personal history, I want to speak about what some people have said, and I want to spread and enlighten some of their comments on the issue. Pull this up right here. The guys over at kind of funny games actually talked about this today on their daily episode here on YouTube. They talked about Youssef Maguid's comments here on the ethnic cleansing of Palestine. I actually got to see this when he posted a couple days ago, May 14th. And I found this to be a very accurate take in my experience, and something that was very educational, very enlightened, and very personal, and just like really well informed and well put together stuff. So I want to thank Yusuf personally for making these statements. I think this is also bold to speak out in these ways, and people have hardly ever spoken for Palestine in this Israel versus Palestine war, conflict, whatever you want to call it. I don't think it's either of those things because it's very one-sided. But I want to read to you what Yusuf has written here, which, of course, Blessing read this morning on Kind of Funny Games Daily. So it says here, short history of the ethnic cleansing of Palestine. Have you ever tried to find Palestine on a modern-day map? You likely won't be able to. Israelis have done their best to erase Palestine and Palestinians since the end of World War I. Up until 1918, the Ottoman Empire controlled Palestine, a predominantly Muslim Arab state. During World War I, the British captured the region and came out of the war with control of it, thus beginning what's known as Mandatory Palestine, in quotes. While there had been Jewish immigration to Palestine before the war, at the time of the Mandate in 1922, Jews only accounted for 11% of Palestine's population. Huge waves of immigration called aliyahs, resulting from Jewish persecution in Europe, most notably during the Holocaust, brought hundreds of thousands of Jews into Palestine looking to establish an independent Jewish state. These are known as Zionists. Not only were Palestinians contending with the British occupation, but they were facing a reality of losing their land, which led to the Arab Revolt in 1936. British forces and Zionist militias put an end to the revolt at the cost of many lives. 10% of adult male Palestinians were either killed, wounded, imprisoned, or exiled. 10%. The revolt ended in 1939, and World War II continued to see more Jews flee to Palestine. By the end of World War II, the Jewish population had risen to 31%. After the war, Zionists began to rebel against British control, eventually forcing Britain to end the Mandate and evacuate Palestine in 1948. Now, let's remember that year, because that will come into play when I explain my story. While Zionists wanted their own Jewish state, Palestinians refused to willingly concede their land. When the UN proposed a partitioning of Palestine between Jews and Arabs, Palestinians made it clear that partitioning the country was of no interest. With Britain evacuating, Palestine was on the verge of a power vacuum. The result was fighting between Arab and Jewish militias that ended with 250,000 Palestinians, either fleeing or being kicked out of their home country. This is the definition of ethnic cleansing. On the eve of Britain's evacuation, the head of the Jewish agency, a man named David Ben-Gurion, declared what had always been known as Palestine as the State of Israel. Before the British even left, Zionists claimed the country for themselves. It's worth pointing out here, Israel, the term, the name, the nation, has only existed for about 72 years. Your grandparents probably remember a time before Israel existed. The move was seen as hostile, and Egypt, Syria, Jordan, and Iraq decided it was unacceptable, and thus the Arab-Israeli War began. After a year, the war came to an end, and Jordan annexed an area of land called the West Bank, while Egypt annexed a strip known as Gaza. The UN estimates that 700,000 Palestinians were driven out of the country in a year. 700,000 people in 1 year. Oh, and by the way, West Bank and Gaza probably sound familiar to you. That's because that's where a majority of modern-day attacks by Israelis take place. That's because what few Palestinians remain reside in those two regions. The West Bank and Gaza are all that remains of Palestine, and the Israelis are coming to finish the job as you're reading this. This is just the Cliff Notes version of the history behind what you are seeing and hearing and why so many people are outraged at what is happening. He put this in all caps. Palestinians are being erased. Please educate yourselves. The internet is free, and ignorance is a luxury that you may be able to afford, but Palestinians can't. So that's the end of Youssef Maguid's 16 post long thread. And I will have links to all of this down in the description. I'll have this all broken up into chapters so you can skip throughout the video and reference any of this stuff as needed. But what I want to say about the explanation here is that I definitely agree that Palestinians are in the largest open-air prison, the Gaza Strip especially, walled off, and just being relentlessly bombed for decades, but especially now, right? During, Ramadan, all this events started happening, all these attacks, and that's during, they were not free to even celebrate their own religious stuff. That would be like Christians. That would be like us being attacked on Easter or Christmas. It's a big deal for us. And so, this is nothing new to me. I've known about it, like my family has experienced this over the past 70 years or more. And, it's easy to become jaded and lose hope, but, and to just not even talk about it because you are so persecuted for speaking out on this issue. And I'll get into that more later as well. But I think a lot of people are saying, hey, they're saying, hey, Youssef, hey, Aaron, hey, guys over there, Kind of Funny, hey, IGN, Kotaku, GameSpot, everyone that spoke out about this, they're just telling them, hey, shut up and dribble. Play your stupid video games. Give us video game reviews. Give us your thoughts on this. Create content on games. But don't talk about politics. Don't talk about war. Don't talk about crimes against humanity that are being committed. No. This is one of the times where you do have to stand up and speak. And I'm proud of all of these people for doing so. And the multitudes of people that have retweeted, spoken out, donated money, all of these things. You're helping. You're brave and bold people for speaking up and standing up for people that can't stand up for themselves. And I'll get more into that as well. I know that's probably like a broken record at this point. But in 1948, and we remember that year, my mom's side of the family, grandparents of mine, took my aunts and uncles who were very young, just being born, and they left Palestine because people around them were being murdered, Their homes were being stolen by the Zionists. Their homes were being stolen. People were fleeing, and then when you flee, they just move into your house. Like, you don't exist anymore. We have papers that we own properties and such in Jerusalem and all these other cities that our families, an extended family have lived in. But because we left from fear of death, or even, people that were killed, it's all up in the air. So they left as people around them were dying, and they saw that the only option was to come to the land of opportunity, America. And so they came by boat, and they were denied it at the Ellis Island in New York. So they actually moved down to Mexico and lived there for 10 years before they were able to legally immigrate into Texas, where my mother meets my father, and then of course me and my brother are born, right? So me and my brother being and mom being Americans, and born here, but half Palestinian, of course. So this issue has been talked about at the dinner table for years. Family has made trips back there several times. I had the chance to visit both Jordan and Israel in 2003, and I'd be willing to speak about that more in detail in perhaps another video, and maybe show pictures and essays and such that I wrote on that. But I went during a ceasefire, and the difference coming across from Jordan to Israel was shocking. The bus we were on was searched by Israeli police force, and these guys were armed with M16s. They had dogs come in the bus and search. They pointed guns in everyone's faces, whether they were, Jordanians, Palestinians, Americans, even though and we had to, of course, lie and say that, we're just American tourists coming to visit, and we had to talk nice to the Israelis. And these guys are kids. I mean, they're 18, they're 20, and they're soldiers, just ready to kill and persecute others. And so we saw that firsthand. And so we went to visit our family there, and we got to tour a lot of the holy sites and such, and see the destruction firsthand. And during that ceasefire, it did not last very long, and you could tell that tensions were boiling, and some nights there were gunfire and bombings and such, that we could hear at a great distance. But experiencing all that firsthand and being able to see the suffering that these people are going through is a whole other thing. And we were able to see the land that was taken from us. We were able to even see a street that was named after our family's last name, in Jerusalem, which I don't know if that's a good thing, or if it seems like it's mocking us, or like it's like, oh, it's a tribute, but it's like, and we got to see some of the property that we still retain, and I don't know, it's just a real shame to see something that you thought was yours, and something that belongs to people just being taken. They just come in, they clear you out, they build on top illegally. And the UN knows this, and it's been protested to the UN, and nobody does anything. And this genocide, this apartheid, this persecution, murder, bombings, killing of women and children, all falls on deaf ears because it's a complicated issue, is what they say. It's not really that complicated. The US sends tons of guns and bombs and missile defense systems to Israel. We send millions of dollars of money their way, regardless of whether I, as an American, want to send money there or whether I care or not. That money goes because our government decides they want to be loyal to Israel and Israel alone. So they have sophisticated militaristic weapons. The Palestinians, Hamas to be specific, have rockets. They have guns. They have young soldiers and men, women, and they fight back as best they can. And they are not to be painted as terrorists. And more of the videos and documents that I'll link below will explain that and explain the broader situation in more detail. I'm just going to speak on my personal experience. Um, so it's a very one-sided battle here. And the way things are going right now, Israel doesn't want to stop bombing the Gaza Strip until it's a parking lot. They don't care. Because you know what? If they kill everyone there, they get to move in and build condos and live there. They get to settle. Once they take over and no one's there, that's the definition of apartheid. That's one of the many things that functions as apartheid. So if we go over here, this is just Google Maps here, by the way. This is the Gaza Strip right here. This is the largest open air prison. This dotted line here. Palestinians that are in this area, they can't leave. They might be able to immigrate from other areas to here, but they are not allowed to leave here. Medical care doesn't matter. You want to go on vacation? Doesn't matter. You can try your best to leave, but you'll probably die on the way out. And so, looking at the broader parts of Israel here, there's Jerusalem, there's Bethlehem. Beit Jala right here is actually a place where a lot of my family is from, and one of the many places we visited, as well as the Church of the Holy Sepulchre and several other places throughout. And even up here, until my grandmother's last breath, she always talked about going back to Haifa. She always, as a old woman living in Texas with her family, she always talked about how much she wanted to go to the beach and go to Haifa, and she never got to go back. She did get to go with us when we went to Jordan and Israel, but we did not get to go there. We got to go to the Dead Sea. We got to go to all these amazing places, but some of the violence and the passes required to get to certain areas and the passport restrictions that you have, it's very, very difficult. And one of the other things that this article here that was recently published, I want to share, talks about these different regions here and how Palestinians essentially have to have different forms of ID, different day passes. So they're not even allowed to go into Jerusalem, say, without getting a pass, without having a legitimate reason. And, being people that are persecuted, oftentimes it doesn't matter how good your reasons are. So here this article will get more into the crime of apartheid and sort of explain how that is such, and I have some videos that also explain that as well. And depending on and there's this huge disparity that the video and this article highlights, that Israelis are free to roam and do as they please. They have all the rights in the world, from freedom of speech, freedom to vote, freedom from persecution. They can move anywhere, they can do anything. Whereas you can see in the right column here, Palestinians have no rights, no citizenship. They can't, if you leave, you lose everything. And in some cases, you can't even leave. And so if you just keep scrolling through, you'll see more of these comparisons here. You can't just hop in the car and drive to Jerusalem. You don't get a fair trial because, the police are very much like how our police in America treats African Americans, with great racism, disparities, and just unequal rights. But this is on a whole other level as well. So it's not to be compared. It's not a fair comparison, but just to allow you to see it through a lens that you might be more familiar with. Do I have the right to free speech and the right to protest? Can I build a home? No. They won't give you permits to build a home. They don't care, because in their eyes, to the Zionists, you are not a person. You are not a legal resident. Israel is a Jewish state, is for the Jewish people alone, and everyone who is not a Jew there is essentially trespassing. That's how they look at it. And They look at these people and they want to exterminate them. I can't put it more, like, I'm sorry it's so brutal and so crystal clear, and but I mean that's literally what it is. Is your legal status secure? No. Can you move abroad? No. You can't come back. No. Legal status? No, probably not. Can I easily move to a new home? No. No. You can't do anything. So you're born unequal. You're not recognized by the government. You don't get basic services. You don't get health care. You don't get COVID vaccines. You can't stay there for years to come, because eventually they do want to eliminate the Gaza Strip. They do eventually want to cleanse the entire country of Palestinians. So one of the things that Tamoor, who was on the Kind of Funny Daily right there, he spoke out. He had a thread of tweets and of course a video and such, and they spoke there. One of the things he mentioned is we're watching the extinction of people. We are watching the extinction of Palestinians. And we can either sit by and do nothing, or we can do something. If I want to move, do I have a lot of options? No. You stay here? No. Because, I mean, eventually, they do want to completely exterminate this area. And it's a long article, but I think the greatest thing you can do, if you can't donate, if you can't, if you don't have a platform where you can speak out, become educated, spread knowledge, become informed on the issue. Even if you don't agree with me, even if you don't agree with all this other stuff, become informed on this issue, because it's so important to so many people. Now, one of the other things I want to talk about is obviously what they talked about Kind of Funny Games Daily today, and the internet has been buzzing about, was that IGN had the Palestinian flag on their homepage. They had several links for donations during this humanitarian crisis, because women, children are being murdered, bombed, other than just Palestinians in general, always being murdered and bombed and persecuted by the police, and come in and beat them to a pulp or shoot them and kill them, whatever it is, it's constant. So IGN had all that on their page, and that was IGN Israel actually spoke out saying that they disagree with the American branch of IGN, and about this big tweet, and they eventually, I guess, got a hold of the leadership at IGN, Ziff Davis and J2 Global, and the corporate leadership there completely erased all of the Palestinian support that IGN was putting out there. They got rid of the flag, they got rid of all the links, the article, the tweets, and everything. And then in the dead of night, they released a statement, which I'm not even going to bother to read, but it essentially says that, all lives matter on both sides. We didn't mean to take sides and side with the Palestinians. You didn't mean to side with the people in a humanitarian crisis. Are you kidding me? The people being in this completely murdered and killed by an incredibly unequal force. Okay? This is like bringing a knife to a gunfight, or a bomb. A knife to a bomb fight. I mean, there's nothing equal about what's going on here. This is not an equal, proportional attack to whatever, if Israel wants to say, oh, the Palestinians started it. This goes back and forth for 70 years. You can trace it back, but in the end, you're just pointing fingers. So, today, actually, and this is a notable thing, an open letter was addressed to the leadership at IGN by a lot of the staff at IGN, and signed by, of course, several employees there, putting their careers and their lives on the line to speak out and say that they are appalled by the recent decision by management to remove the editorial autonomy of IGN's editors and staff for choosing to come out and recognize that these people needed aid and that they needed to do something in a time of crisis. Just like we do something with Black Lives Matter when African Americans are being killed in the streets by our police, and obviously so in the Derek Chauvin case against George Floyd, where he kneeled on the man's neck for over 9.5 minutes. Where it's cut and dry, it's plain and clear violence, racism, hatred, murder. That's a humanitarian crisis. So when we speak out and when we, as a gaming community, have done things, whether it's for Black Lives Matter, the Minnesota Freedom Fund, the St. Jude Children's raising money for cancer, gaming has a great capacity to unite people of several different religious beliefs, creeds, men, women, the LGBT community. Everyone can come together and unite about one thing, about gaming, but also about doing what's right and helping people, helping to eradicate Alzheimer's, cancer, humanitarian disasters, unfair treatment by police, rights for women, people of all races. It comes down to a lot of things, but we have shown that the gaming community has a capacity to do great things. And if we look at Kind of Funny, currently, their Palestine Children's Relief Fund that they're doing is over 15,000 raised in just the first day here. They've already completely eradicated the goal there, and they are actually going to have a live stream on Friday where they're going to raise obviously more money, I guess, and I hope we can see that at least double. Hopefully we can see that at 30,000K. But I want to thank all these people. I want to thank Greg, Tim Gettys, Blessing, Tamoor, all the guys at Kind of Funny Games, Youssef, of course, here for speaking out and being the light out here that just lit the flame here and that allowed people to feel some courage and so many people coming out and speaking about this. It's so, it fills me with passion to just know that anyone cares, because I've spent my entire life under this shroud of, guess what? Your people, they don't matter. They're branded as terrorists. They're branded as Muslims who Americans often look at disparagingly, and we look at them as terrorists and as, and that's what they're painted as in our video games and our movies and TV shows and everything. It's, the Middle East is always painted as this perpetual war zone that anyone with that color skin and a beard and, whatever attire goes along with it is a bad guy. And that's not true. We're all people. We have to share this world that we live in, and it's just not fair. So I want to thank all them. And of course, there have been several tweets by Rami Ismail as well, if I'm saying that right, a game dev. He's had several tweets as well on the issue, and I really want to thank him for speaking out as well. I can't acknowledge everyone who's spoken out, but these are big voices in the gaming community that are speaking out about this atrocity and very clearly calling it out as, genocide, apartheid, or ethnic cleansing. Choose your poison, but it all comes down to being the same thing. So what are the reasons that myself and others don't speak out about this? Well, from the Israeli perspective, any critique of Israel is branded as anti-Semitism. And that couldn't be further from the truth. I have no hate for the Jewish people. Okay? I have no hate for anyone in my heart, but what the Zionists are doing here is wrong. And it's important to separate that from not all Jews, okay? But there's, obviously it's very quiet over there. We're not hearing a lot of noise from them about these atrocities. And we don't see a lot of them speaking up for Palestinians. I know they're out there. I've heard them speak out before. I've heard people call out wrongdoing, but it's awful silent out there right now while they're bombing Palestine. So it's often any critique of Israel, whether it's Americans, Palestinians, whatever source it comes from, they automatically brand you as an anti-Semite, and they come at you with the cancel culture stuff. They come at you with everything they've got, and that's not right, because that's not further from the truth. So much like things like the healthcare debate, the gun debate, there's all these things that come out that corrupt the argument. For example, with the gun debate, we can't talk about gun control because it would be against our Second Amendment rights to get rid of guns or make it harder for someone to get a gun. So immediately, Republicans are able to shut down that thing with this false equivalency here. And so with Palestine, they can just shout at you and say, you're an anti-Semite. You just hate Jews. If you're on their side, then you're not with us. I just want a solution that works. Now, a two-state solution, it's been talked about. Both sides have declined multiple times. Sometimes they've come close to achieving a two-state solution. But now that Israel owns most of this territory, now that they own most of this area, other than the Gaza Strip and the West Bank, and a lot of that is shrinking as we speak, they're not going to want to give up any of that. So what is the solution? My personal opinion is that these two people need to learn to coexist. And Palestinian people need to have rights. Just like America, they need to become a melting pot and realize that we are better together and that they can coexist. Palestinians are not just Muslims. They're Christians. There's probably even some Jewish ones. It is a melting pot of people, and I happen to be a Catholic Palestinian, so it's not uncommon that all these people of different beliefs, different backgrounds. America is the great example of opportunity, the American dream, a mixed melting pot of many people, and we don't get it right all the time. We still struggle with our racial disparities and men and women having equal rights and equal eyes, or people of all colors having equal rights in the eyes of the law, stuff like that. We don't get it right 100% of the time. But I think this country could learn. These two groups of people, the Zionists and the Palestinians, can learn. The Jews can learn. The Jews wanted a safe place so that they would never have another Holocaust happen. They wanted to become so powerful and to have a country all their own that a Holocaust would never happen to them again. You can understand why. I think we can all agree on that. But they came and took land that didn't belong to them. This was the country of Palestine. They came and moved in with force. So, if I can leave you with one thing, one thought, if there's one thing that you learned from this entire speech that I've given you here, is that one Holocaust does not justify another. And that's exactly what's happening. So, as Youssef said, educate yourself. It's free. It's a luxury that we all have. The internet is a big place. Seek all the resources you need to. I'll have some in the description down below as well as sources for all the people I've commented about here. I want to thank everyone for speaking out. I want to thank everyone for helping. And if you struggle to know how you can help, if it's money, you can donate to any of those causes. I'll have links to those causes as well in the description down below. If you don't have money, if you can't donate, you can educate yourself. You can speak about this. You can speak out. You can retweet. You can tweet yourself. Okay? You can make videos. If you don't have a platform, you can make a platform. And you can do the right thing. And you can be part of the solution and not the problem. Because ignorance has gotten us nowhere for the past 70 years. Waiting for Israel to come up with some solution has left us nowhere. Because they like the way things are right now. They don't care either way. They'll fight this war eternally. It's been 70 years. They'll keep bombing until there's nothing left. So, once again, I want to thank you guys for watching. And I appreciate all the support. It means a lot to me. And I want to thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Like this video if you found this informative, educational. If I mean, that can even be your way of supporting these people is to amplify the voices that are speaking about this issue. And I would love to have more conversations about this. And it's a big personal issue for me, and it gets very heated very fast. So I want to thank you for bearing with me. So like this video, leave some stuff in the comments if you have something to say. But I ask that you be nice. I ask that you be respectful of myself and other people in the comments. And I want to thank you once again for watching. And I hope you have a great one. And God bless the people of Palestine. God be with them. Thank you.